Hey friends, so I wanted to bring you out to my garden today. It is a little late in the season, and to be perfectly honest, I had intended to show you around a little bit earlier, but better late than never, I figure. And because it's late in the season, it gives me the unique advantage of being able to tell you about the things that worked really well for me this year and the things that didn't work quite so hot. So sometimes you see pictures of my garden on Instagram or Facebook and you might assume that it's just like this picture perfect setting all the time. And there are definitely times of the year when it is pretty darn gorgeous out here, but let's be real. There's also times where the bugs eat stuff, things don't grow, or I just flat out forget to keep up on things. And so I wanted to show you the good, the bad, and the ugly today. All right, let's start with a win. I'd say the biggest one for this year in the garden has been the crazy hail netting that we built. Some of you have seen pictures of it over on Instagram or Facebook. Kind of looks like a circus tent, but because we have so much hail here in Southeast Wyoming, we have been scheming this design for a while, and I'm really thrilled with how it came together. So the hail netting came together smoothly and it's working pretty darn good. Now, I can't say for certain 100% how it works with a heavy-duty hailstorm because honestly, we haven't had them this year. Go figure, right? We've had some mild hail though, and it's done a wonderful job of keeping everything off the garden. And I love that I don't have to be stressed out every time a thunderstorm comes through and be out here trying to cover stuff, which as you can see would be pretty much impossible with how big everything is this year. So that was a definite win, and we will be putting it back up next year. We're going to take it down this winter just to keep it from getting shredded with the blizzards, but I'm really happy with how this project turned out. Another win I had this year is actually accidental, and that would be the crazy sunflowers. You can see these were all volunteers. They're just leftover seeds from last year, and I just didn't have the heart to pull them. So I left them as is, which made things maybe a little bit disorganized, but they have done really well. And what we'll do is once these dry out just a little bit more, we will cut the heads off and then roast our own sunflower seeds. I have a whole tutorial on the blog on how to do that if you're interested, but we did it last year and Christian says he's quite the sunflower seed connoisseur, that they were the best seeds he's ever eaten. So that was a win, even though I didn't intend to be a sunflower farmer in 2020. Okay, so as far as fails go, I did have a number of them. And here's what I want you to know. Even though I've been gardening for over a decade, I still have years where certain things just don't do well. And I know that's a really common problem for a lot of gardeners. So if this is your first year gardening, or maybe you've only been doing it for a little while, just take heart that it's okay when you have certain crops that just don't excel during a given growing season. And that is exactly what happened with my beans. I have had years where I have grown beautiful crops of beans. This is not that year. As you can see, this is a sad little bed of beans. Believe it or not, I replanted some of these areas 3 different times and I still did not get great germination, and then the plants are a little bit stunted. So whenever I have an issue like this, my next objective is to figure out what the heck happened. So I have a couple of guesses that I'm still working on narrowing down. So my first guess as to why maybe this didn't work out so great this year is that I know our soil is deficient in iron sometimes, and beans need a lot of iron. And so when I look at these plants, they're stunted for a reason, and these yellowed leaves makes me think that we might have a lower amount of iron in the soil in this bed. So next year I'm going to be doing some more iron supplementation. Now the other suspect here in my little mystery is that some of you will remember a number of years ago I had put some mulch on my garden that was sprayed with an herbicide, and it caused a lot of problems. And I'm a little bit concerned that this particular soil that was put into this bed, it was scraped up from when we redid our garden 5 years ago. I'm wondering if this still has some contaminant in it, because these stunted plants like this are a definite sign of this particular sort of herbicide. So I need to do a little more research there, but I just want you to see that not all things in my garden end up being a massive success. All right, so my next big fail, well, you might not think it's a fail at first because you can see how these gorgeous marigolds, that a lot of these volunteered from last year, they were so pretty. I loved having them in the garden, but I got so excited to have them, oh boys, that I let them overtake this onion bed. So I had this bed planted with my onions. The marigolds kind of started to take over. At first I'm like, it's okay, they can live together in harmony. Well, the marigolds got so big that they basically crowded out the onions, and as you can see, it's pretty sad. So I pulled them out. These were actually completely full with marigolds. I pulled out those flowers, but it wasn't soon enough. And I basically massacred this entire bed of onions. So definite fail on that. So I had given up on growing corn for a lot of years. It was a combination of just not being able to get it to thrive, or when I did get it to finally grow, the raccoons would come and eat it. So I kind of threw a temper tantrum and said, no more corn. And last year I ventured into corn one last time just to give it one shot, and the results were not great. I had little baby stunted corn last year. The ears were super chewy and it just didn't look awesome. So I tried it this year just to see if I could fix some of those problems, and I think I call this one a win. The stalks are actually normal size and the ears are developing nicely. And here's what I learned. So sometimes too much water can be just as detrimental as not enough water. And what I figured out was when I was dumping so much water on the corn, it actually kind of started to drown it just a little bit. So this year we have less water and taller stalks. Who would have thought? So there is a grasshopper infestation in a lot of areas of the country right now. And all summer long I had friends asking me, do you have the grasshoppers yet? And I'm like, no, we're good. Until we went to fair. My daughter showed her steer at fair. We were gone for a week. I come home and lo and behold, the plague has arrived. So this was kind of a fail, not necessarily my fault, but I'm not loving how it ended up. So first off, you can see my tomato jungle, which yes, I do intend to cage or trellis a little bit better next year, but I still have a lot of tomatoes. But what I want you to see here is the massive grasshopper damage. You can see here, this was a big old happy plant and the grasshoppers came through and just stripped it down to bare bones. So that happened so quick, you wouldn't believe it. I didn't have time really, because we were at fair, to get out here and spray it with some of my homemade pest repellent. So it's kind of sad. These were big old healthy plants and now they're twigs. Thankfully, it's not affecting these guys over here. I still have a lot of fruit on the plants, even though some have some little bite marks on them. I'm just waiting for these guys to get red and then we'll bring them in the house and make sauce. Okay guys, check this out. I have to show you this. Watch out, Dozer. So I've always wanted to grow watermelon, but it's not really a thing that happens in Wyoming. So I found this heirloom variety that's supposed to be a tougher sort of watermelon. I planted it. I've been kind of ignoring it, just not having high hopes. I came out the other day and checked this out. There is a single solitary watermelon. Now I don't know if it's going to have enough time to fully ripen before it frosts, but I think it gets some brownie points for giving it a good old try. So I'm actually pretty impressed. I grew at least somewhat of a watermelon in southeast Wyoming. That is almost a miracle. Oh, Jed. Jed. And lastly, I say our big win for the year is that we are finally starting construction on a greenhouse. Yes, we have been talking about it for so long. Like, I don't even know when this whole conversation started, but we finally pulled the trigger. We bought the kit and it's going up. It remains to be seen if we'll have it done in time to plant some fall crops, but either way, I don't care because we are finally gonna have a greenhouse. So I don't know, friends, maybe you watched that video and you're like, man, she is the world's worst gardener. But here's the deal. As someone who teaches and mentors other folks in the homesteading space, I want to show you the good and the bad and the ugly. Sometimes my life is picture perfect and it looks like it could be in a homesteading movie, and other times the bugs eat my chard and the grasshoppers strip down my tomato plants and things just don't go as I wanted them to. But that's just part of this homesteading gig. It's about resiliency, it's about learning from your mistakes, getting better each and every year, and you don't have to be perfect to be a darn good homesteader.